Chapter 5. After a supper of cornbread, fried bacon, and buttered squash, Ben took his 2 rifles from the rack of the wall and began to clean them. Megan, still rosy from the warm bath and wrapped in her night shift in one of Emma's soft robes, curled up in a chair as Emma opened a book and began holding in the lamplight and began to read a tale about a lion and a mouse. "Let me go," said the mouse, "and some day I may be of help to you." The idea that the little mouse could do anything for the large, magnificent beast like a lion greatly amused the lion, so he let the mouse go. "Huh," Megan said, "that lion has a very high opinion of himself. I hope the mouse got clear away from him and never came back." Emma blinked with surprise. "Wait, I haven't finished the story." She read on about the lion being caught in the hunter's net and the mouse gnawing through the net to get the lion free. "The lesson we should learn is never to belittle smaller things," she read, and turned to Megan with a smile. "Yes," Megan said, "but I do wish the lion had told the mouse. He was sorry for putting his nose in the air and trying to be so high and mighty. The lion's the one who should have learned the lesson." Perhaps the storyteller assumed that the lion had. "Who's the storyteller?" "A man named Aesop, who lived many, many years ago." "Did you like the story, Megan?" Megan thought for a moment. "Yes, I did. But it was very different from the stories Ma and Di used to tell us. Their Irish stories were grand, with battles and magic and fiery pukas. It were so frightening we'd shiver down to our toes. I don't think Mr. Aesop was Irish, was he?" Emma smiled. "As a matter of fact, he wasn't. But I hope you'll like his fables. We can read the rest of the book together." Megan had already told Emma she couldn't read, because Emma had talked about reading practically the first moment they met. But she still felt embarrassed. "Frances and Mike learned to read easily," she blurted out, "but I didn't take to it the way they did." Emma patted Megan's shoulder and smiled. "You're a bright girl, Megan, and you'll soon be reading as well as your brother and sister. Do you know any of your letters?" "Yes, those I know." "Very well," Emma pointed out to a word. "Tell me what the letters of this word." "M and E. Every letter has a sound of its own. Is the M sound. You say it." Megan did, and Emma said, "Now tell me the sound E makes, and say the 2 sounds together." "E," Megan murmured. Me. Oh, that's right. The word is me. Do you see it anywhere else on the page?" Megan studied the jumble of letters until she found it. Excitedly, she pointed it out again. "Here it is, and here again." "That's reading," Emma said. "Just what you're doing." Megan joyfully hugged the book to her chest. "I'm going to learn to read." "And write, too," Emma said, "so you can write to your mother and your brothers and sisters." The room blurred as tears ran out of Megan's eyes, and she tried to rub them away. "I know you miss your brothers and sisters very much," Emma murmured. Megan nodded. "I was thinking today about the little ones. We were very close, because they were in my care while Ma and Frances worked. I wondered how they were faring, and do they miss me as much as I miss them? Petey's so young. Will he forget me?" "Of course he won't," Emma said. She put her hands on Megan's shoulders, and Megan could see the firm promise that shone in Emma's eyes. "It'll be hard for us to travel during the winter, but when spring comes we may be able to take you to visit them." Hope was like a warm spot burning in Megan's chest, and she hugged the book more tightly. Ben got to his feet. He replaced the rifles in their rack with to bank the fire, and an orange glow casting deep shadows across his face. "Time for bed," he said, but as he spoke a weird high-pitched wail sound came from somewhere outside. It seemed to come from far away, and yet its echo hung in the room as though it had seeped through the walls. Megan gasped. "What was that?" "Nothing to be afraid of," Ben said. "Was it an Indian?" Ben shook his head, and Megan stood up, still holding tightly to the book. "Then I'm not afraid," she said, adding a touch of mischief, "unless you tell me that horrible sound came from the cow." Emma and Ben laughed, and Ben said, "Poor old Rosie, she frightened you by being a little too curious. No, Megan, what you heard was a wolf howling at the moon. But don't be afraid. You're safe and snug in the house." Emma put an arm around Megan. "Come along, Megan. Time for bed. We rise early, because there's much work to do." With a folded cloth protecting her hand, she picked up and wrapped one of the flat, circular stones that were laying on the hearth, and carried it to Megan's bedroom and placed it between the sheets on Megan's bed, where it would warm her feet. Emma tucked Megan in, pulling the quilt up to her chin. "Sleep well, dear," she said, and bent to kiss Megan's forehead. "Pleasant dreams." But Megan dreamed of Ma's kiss and Ma's strong hands tucking her into bed, and when she woke in the morning, the pillow was wet from her tears. There was much for Megan to learn about the farm, and she loved every discovery. It was like winning a prize each time she wiggled her fingers under a scolding hen, and found a warm, freshly laid egg. Goliath the rooster tried to bully her, but she shouted and chased him as he squawked frantically, flapping his wings, running away from her as fast as he could manage. Megan laughed aloud. "You old bully," she yelled after him. "You can't get the best of me." The first time Megan approached the cow, she was so frightened she could hardly breathe. Rosie turned to stare at her, and Megan backed a step away, but she spoke to the cow in a firm voice. "Ben said you don't bite, and I intend to stay out of the way of your clumsy feet, so let's both do our best to get this job done without any mishaps. Sit there, Rosie, with like the feel of your head resting on her side." Ben told her. "Now, move your hands like this." Megan did as he said, and squealed with delight as she heard Rosie's milk squirt against the sides of the metal pail. One evening, Ben took the Henry rifle from the rack of the wall and showed Megan how to load and handle it. "You'll probably find it easier to shoot the smaller rifle," he said. "The Henry's too heavy for you now, but I usually have the smaller one with me. It's a good idea to know how to handle whatever gun's nearby in case, well, just in case of any kind of trouble." "Indians?" Megan whispered. "I'm not anticipating trouble with Indians," Ben said. Some more of the wild animals I'm thinking of. Sometimes a pack of wolves comes around. Last summer, a fair piece north of us, some folks had trouble with a bear who wandered too far out of his usual territory. He smiled. I believe in being prepared. Emma knows how to handle both rifles, and soon you will too. There was weeks of cold, dry weather, interspersed with days of late Indian summer. If her sunbonnet off as much as odd, Megan helped Emma weed the vegetable garden, Ben tar to ride Jay and Jimbo, and once she got over her awe of imposing horses, she felt very much at home on their broad backs. In the evenings, Emma usually read a chapter from her fat novel called Moby Dick, before it was Megan's turn to read while Emma sewed. Each night during the last half of October, she'd pick up the collection of Aesop's fables and work her way through one of the stories. While she occasionally stumbled over a word, reading began to come easier for her, and she often read an entire paragraph without stopping for Emma's help. At times she'd pause and look up, her heart thumping of excitement. Did you hear that now? I read all the way to the end. Good for you, Emma, praised Megan, and she grinned with pleasure. You're learning quickly. It's grand to be reading, Megan would say, and she'd practice every chance she got. Megan often disagreed with Aesop about the point of some of the fables, but she liked the tale of the fox who tricked the crow. It's very funny, she told Ben, who was mending one of his boots at the kitchen table. In the story, a crow had a bit of cheese on his beak, and the fox wanted it. Now, I would say that the fox had no business wanting what the crow had, but the crow had stolen the cheese from someone's windowsill, so she did not have my sympathy. I'll agree to that, Ben said. Well, the fox stood on the branch, and the crow was sitting on, and began to flatter her. And he told her things that no crow in her right mind would believe. And then finally he said he was sure that if she could sing, she would sound like a nightingale. And you know what that foolish crow did? What? Ben grunted as he tried to tug a thin strip of leather through a narrow hole in the side of the boot. Opened her beak to sing and dropped the cheese. And the fox picked it up, trod off, saying, I may have said many fine things about your beauty, but I never did for a moment mention your brains. Isn't that funny? Megan laughed with delight. Yes, it is, Ben said. Suppose the lesson is to beware of people who flatter you. That's what Mr. Aesop said, Megan said. However, he missed one or two other lessons. Ben looked up what other lessons. Well, for one thing, the crow should not have stolen the cheese, but for another, whoever was careless enough to leave the cheese on the windowsill in the first place deserved to lose it. Ben began to laugh, and Megan laughed with him. At least you found one of the fables you like, Ben said. Megan shrugged. As a storyteller, Mr. Aesop wasn't very exciting, but the poor man was doing his best, and we can't hold it against him. He wasn't born Irish with the natural gift. Emma laid her sewing in her lap and asked, Megan, could you tell us one of the Irish stories your mother and father told you? I can try, Megan said. Remembering how Dad told the story, she began. It was a silvery night, a night in which the moon lights each pebble on the road, making the way safe for travelers. Fiona O'Fallon, who was known for being the best seamstress in the whole of Ireland, tucked her thread and pack of needles into her pocket and left the house where she was sewing a gown for a young woman about to be married. Just as Da had, Megan made her voice deep and impressive when she told about the meeting between Fiona O'Fallon and the Queen of the Fairies, who wanted to take her away to the fairy kingdom. Fiona O'Fallon knew she had no power to resist the mighty Queen of the Fairies, but she had the wit to pull the thread and packet of needles from her pocket and drop them on the ground, before she was carried away by a great gust of wind. Delighted with the rapt attention Ben and Emma were giving her, Megan went on to tell how Fiona's son had the thread and needles and realized what had happened to his mother and set about to bring her home again. So the sound of the great wind rushed over his head. He threw it a handful of dirt and shouted, I command you, release Fiona O'Fallon. And his mother dropped from the cloud almost into his arms and praised him for his bravery and quick thinking. And oh, did she have much to tell her family about what she'd seen and where she'd been. As Megan leaned back in her chair, Emma clapped her hands. Wonderful. I don't know when I've heard such an exciting story. Oh, I'll tell you another tomorrow, Megan said, about Puka, whose eyes glowed like two red-hot coals. Oh, Ben, Emma said, when the Parsons come to visit, won't they love to hear Megan's stories? Megan ducked her head, blushing with pleasure. She was learning to print neatly, and although she had to ask Emma how to spell many of the words, she probably wrote 4 letters, one to Ma, to Francis and Petey, to Mike, and to Danny and Peg. The early November days grew cooler, and Megan bundled herself up against the wind that blew the grasses almost flat against the earth. She woke one night hearing movement in Ben's and Emma's voices in the kitchen. It was dark. Were they awake? It was too soon for the baby to come. Quickly, Megan jumped out of bed and stumbled to the kitchen. Emma and Ben were crouched next to Lady, who was laying on the bed. They had made for her with a worn quilt. Emma looked at Megan and smiled. The puppies are being born, she said. Megan tiptoed a little closer, holding her breath in awe as Ben held up a wet, pink, mewing puppy. I thought they'd look like Lady, Megan exclaimed. Why is it so small? Why doesn't it have hair? Give it time, Ben answered, and turned his full attention to Lady as she began to whimper. Megan, Emma said quietly, come and sit by me. Lady loves you. She'll be glad to know you're here. Megan sat back on her heels, sometimes holding her breath, sometimes gasping with excitement as 3 more healthy puppies were born. Lady and the puppies were moved to a large box Ben had made for them. Megan understood she shouldn't try to touch the puppies. They were so new, so very young, and they belonged only to their mother. But someday one of them would be hers. She stroked Lady's head, scarcely able to contain her happiness. Megan eagerly volunteered to clean the box and care for Lady. And each day she watched the puppies grow. Toward delight, Emma suggested she name them. The smallest one with white paws she named Peggy, after my little sister. She told Emma, I just wish I could give the puppy to Peg. She's never had a dog to love. Maybe she does have a dog, Emma said. I can't imagine a farm without a dog. Megan brightened. I'll ask her in my next letter, she said. She picked up the two with white markings like stars on their foreheads. This is Moby and this is Dick. Emma smiled. How about the fat spotted fellow who's so frisky? Where are you going to name him? Megan picked up the wiggly puppy and snuggled him close. This is Patches, and he's mine. Lady carefully climbed into the box, stirring and settling until she was comfortable. Megan put Patches next to her, and the other pups began scrambling. Megan put Patches next to her as the other puppies began scrambling over each other, pushing and squirming to get to their next meal. As Megan expected, Patches did his best to edge out the others. Megan grinned. She already loved him almost as much as she did Lady. Late one afternoon, Clem Parker, who served as postmaster for the area, rode over to his farm 6 miles away with the 2 letters for Megan. One was from Frances, one was from Ma. Since the letters were written in script, Emma had to read them aloud to Megan. Megan didn't mind sharing her letters with Emma. As she listened to Frances's letter, Meg could almost hear her sisters saying the words out loud. Her eyes filled with tears as Emma read, I pray, darling sister, that you are with a loving family. Sometimes I ache with missing you, and I hope that we'll see each other again. Emma patted Megan's shoulder, and Megan looked up to see her tears reflected in Emma's eyes. Until I was 9, I had a big sister, Emma said, and when we lost her, I missed her so much I thought I would die too. I know how much you must miss Frances. Megan rubbed her sleeve against her eyes. Let's read Ma's letter now, she said, opening the thin envelope with trembling fingers. I have a new address, Ma wrote. I'm working as a downstairs maid for a well-to-do family in an elegant house. I have my own cubbyhole to sleep in the attic, as do each of the servants in the house. Megan's heart gave an extra thump. Ma, in another house? Then the home the Kellys had lived in was gone. Oh, she gasped, and Emma stopped reading to look at her. What is it, Megan? She asked. Megan closed her eyes for a moment. Ma was living in a grander style now, and shouldn't Megan be glad for it? Shouldn't she want Ma to have good food in her own room in a grand house? Of course she should. They had all known from the time they left New York City there'd be no going back. Megan opened her eyes. I'm all right. Please keep reading. Emma found her place in the letter and went on again. Ma wanted to describe the butler, whose nose points to the heavens, and the cook, who's round as her saucepans, and the upstairs maid, who puts on the greatest of airs but whistles through the gap in her teeth. Emma burst into laughter. Your mother's a great storyteller, too, she said. Finally, she read Ma's parting words. I hope you understand, love, why I did what I had to do. I love you with all my heart and always will. Emma looked concerned, but Megan smiled bravely. I do understand what Ma did, she said. I hope you do, too, because I want you to think only good things about my mother. Of course I'm glad you can forgive her, Emma said, but Megan shook her head. There's nothing to forgive. As Ma said, she did what she had to do. She loves us, and I know she misses us as much as we miss her. With that, Megan's brave resolve vanished, and she burrowed her head into Emma's lap and burst into tears. All day, Megan carried the letters in her pocket, and that night she slept with them under her pillow. With the empty wagon rattling and clattering as it bounced to the hard-packed road, Farley Haskell arrived the next morning, and it was a clear, bright day in the middle of November. And the sun was so surprisingly warm that Megan had gladly shed her coat. Mr. Haskell asked Ben to take care of his livestock while he traveled to St. Joseph and back. Got to pick up some supplies before winter sets in, Mr. Haskell stammered. He looked at his wagon, at the ground, and at the sky, but never directly at Ben or Megan. Everything all right, Farley? Ben asked. Of course everything's all right, Mr. Haskell's voice cracked. His voice turned as red as Goliath's wagging comb. He climbed into the seat of his wagon and visibly tried to collect himself by gulping a couple of times. Megan was fascinated by the way his Adam's apple bobbed up and down. Got a lot on my mind, I tell you, Mr. Haskell said. I just hope it works out all right, but I want you to know I'm beholden to you for the help. That's what neighbors are for, Ben said. Anything you need me to get for you in St. Joe? Nothing I can think of, Ben said. We got all that we needed when we went on our trip to St. Joe. And a bit more, Farley said and winked at Megan's direction. And a sudden ache in her chest, Megan thought about the bustling streets of St. Joseph, where it was there she had last seen Mike and Danny and Frances and Peg and Petey. She could feel Frances's arms around her, and a sob rose in her throat. Thankful that the men were talking and hadn't noticed, Megan raced to the house. Back in the house for the noon meal, as Emma was washing the dishes with Megan drying them, Ben told Emma about Mr. Haskell's leaving. Never saw the man in such a stew, he said. Emma frowned. Do you think he's deserting his farm? Could be he's giving up and going back east the way so many others have done. Farley wouldn't just get up and leave without saying so, Ben said. He's stock here. His stock is there. I looked in the dugout to make sure it was in good shape. It's neat enough to have a party in. Emma straightened in surprise, wiping her hands on her apron. Farley's no housekeeper. Are you sure we were in the right place? There's something afoot, Ben said. How could it be? What could it be? Did you drop any hints? Emma asked. Not a one, far as I could tell, Ben said. What could it be? He's due back, they thought for a moment and added, he's due back in 5 days. Maybe then he'll let us in on the secret. Lady scratched at the back door, and Megan hurried to let her race out. The day gleamed with sunlight, and Megan ran into it, with Lady feeling a part of the golden warmth. What a glorious season it had been so far. As much as she missed her family, Megan knew she couldn't have wanted kinder or more generous people than Emma and Ben to have taken her into their home. Gypsy or no gypsy, it seemed the time for Megan had arrived to have some good luck. Had arrived for Megan to finally have some good luck. With Lady at her heels, Megan ran around and around the yard. Her arms became wings as she ran wider and wider circles, kicking up puffs of dust, swooping and swirling and laughing as Lady tried to keep up. And suddenly Lady dashed against her legs, and Megan tripped over them and fell sprawling on the ground. Lady was zigzagging back and forth in front of Megan, barking furiously. Brushing dust from the front of her dress, Megan struggled to her knees to see what had caused Lady to go into such frenzy. Coiled next to the overturned tub, half hidden in the shade, was a large rattlesnake. Megan stared at terror at the wide-stretched mouth and its threatening fangs and darting, quivering tongue. The snake's head swayed from side to side, following Lady's every movement. Megan screamed and scrambled to her feet. "Look out, Lady!" she yelled. "Get back! Get away!" For just an instant, Lady turned her head toward Megan as though to make sure she were safely out of harm's way, and during that brief moment, the rattlesnake struck.